Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare is one of my favorite Call of Duty games of all time, if we're just talking about the campaigns. Honestly, I don't know which game I love more, this game or Modern Warfare 2. They both have their pros and cons, but I think it kinda evens out. I first heard about Modern Warfare from one of my favorite YouTubers of all time, the Wii Viewer. I was basically trying to find some good games to play on my Nintendo Wii back in 2010, and his reviews have definitely helped. This guy is awesome, and I recommend you check out his channel. Anyway, I saw his review of Call of Duty Modern Warfare Reflex Edition, and I thought it looked interesting. I did play a Call of Duty game before this one at a friend's house for about 3 minutes, and that was Call of Duty 2 Big Red 1 for his PlayStation 2. It was the most cinematic game I've ever seen at the time, and that's all I can say about it because 3 minutes later I had to go back home. I didn't know war games could be this epic looking. I mean, hell, before this I played Conflict Desert Storm, which had little to no scripted events outside of cutscenes. It's not necessarily a bad thing though. In fact, if this game came out today, this would be something I'd praise the game for. Anyway, I remember getting Modern Warfare for my birthday that same year, and holy crap, I fell in love with this game. This game is what got me hooked into the Call of Duty franchise, and ironically, Modern Warfare 2019 is what killed my love for the franchise. I don't want to talk about it. I'm actually excited to talk about this game because this is the first review where I talk about a game that I really love and enjoy. Also, there will be spoilers in this review, so you have been warned. Alright, enough of that. Let's play some Modern Warfare. This game was published by Activision and developed by what I consider my favorite Call of Duty developer, Infinity Ward. These guys released 10 games in the franchise, 11 if you count Warzone, which I don't, and I only consider 6 of them good. Maybe 6.5, and I'm being way too generous. Oh yeah, and there's also the remasters, but I don't count those either. Man, Treyarch and Sledgehammer need to step up their game. Or games. Well, let's start things off by talking about the campaign. The story is that Russian ultranationalist Imran Zakhaev and his ally Khaled al-Assad have stolen nuclear weapons, and it's up to the US and British forces to stop them. You play as 2 different characters, Sergeant Soap McTavish from the SAS British Special Forces and Sergeant Paul Jackson from the USMC American Forces. You start off by playing as Soap at the British training base, where you meet up with British Special Forces operator Gaz. He teaches you how to do things like shoot at targets with your rifle, switch to your sidearm, and use your knife for close encounters. Actually, Leon taught me that first.
Bit of advice, try using knives next time. Works better for close encounters.
After that, you meet up with Captain Price, who starts teasing you about your weird name before making you go through a CQB test.
What the hell kind of name is Soap, eh? How'd a muppet like you pass selection?
This is kind of a good point. They never explain why his name is Soap. He must have dropped it when he was in the can. I mean, that is a strange name for a soldier. What were the other names he turned down? Private Shampoo? Lieutenant Dishwater? Sergeant Dove? Anyway, Price has you go through a CQB test, where he teaches you how to use flashbangs and clear rooms quickly and efficiently. The obstacle course that you go through is a simulation of the cargo ship operation that you're about to embark on, along with Gaz, Captain Price, and the rest of the crew. Then a little bit later you play as Paul Jackson, who is sent in the Middle East along with Lieutenant Vasquez and Sergeant Griggs to search for Khaled al-Assad, and the story goes from there. Gaz and Captain Price are my favorite characters in this game. Gaz is an awesome mentor as well as an awesome battle buddy, and Captain Price is a badass leader. They're very supportive on the battlefield, and if they were real life people, I feel like I can trust and rely on them. The USMC Bravo team is a good squad too, but I don't really have much of a connection with them since they're only in 4 out of 20 missions. Oh yeah, there's also this opening credit sequence where you're the president of a Middle Eastern country who has been overthrown and captured by al-Assad's men. You get dragged out of a building, thrown into a car, and for the next 2.5 minutes, you're helplessly watching the soldiers execute the citizens and invade their homes. Then they pull you out of the car, knock you out, tie you to a pole, and al-Assad himself shoots you in the face on national TV. Damn. This game is nearly 19 years old, and it still looks amazing to this day. The graphics are unbelievably good. The lighting effects, the textures, character models, weapons, explosions, and even the environments are just stunning to look at. I used to own this game for the Wii, and I thought that version looked pretty good, but that wasn't until I went to my friend's house and he showed me his copies of Modern Warfare 2 and Black Ops 2 on his PS3, as well as Guitar Hero 3 on his Xbox 360. I couldn't believe what I was seeing on his television screen. It made me look at my Nintendo Wii thinking, the hell am I doing with this piece of shit? The only reason to play this game on the Wii is if I'm feeling nostalgic, but that quickly wears off once I actually start playing the game again. I can let the graphics slide, since it really doesn't look that bad on the Wii. My biggest problem is the controls. I didn't have a problem with them back in the day, but now I've gotten so used to using the PS3 controller that going back to the Wiimote nunchuck is mentally challenging. You use the pointer functionality of the Wiimote to aim your gun, as well as rotate the character. This isn't necessarily bad. In fact, this control scheme works just fine. It's just I wish they could have given me the option to use the classic controller, just like they did with Black Ops and Modern Warfare 3. It is kind of fun to play the game like this once you get used to it though. The music in this game is awesome. It's truly epic listening to this well-orchestrated music while you're riding in a chopper about to invade a cargo ship on a stormy night. There's a lot of epic moments like that where it feels like a truly cinematic experience. The sound design is also something I can praise the game for. The weapons sound very nice and punchy, the explosions sound impactful, and the voice acting is very well done. If you somehow never played a Call of Duty game before, well, first of all, I suggest you start with this one because it's awesome. Second of all, the game works like this. You're given a cutscene that tells you what your mission objective is, and after that, you're off to kill some bad guys. You're given 2 guns, a combat knife, 2 frags, and 2 special grenades. The special grenades vary from mission to mission. Sometimes you'll use flashbangs to stun the enemies by blinding them, and other times you're giving smoke grenades to obscure the enemy's vision, so you and your squad can move to different positions. The weapons also vary from mission to mission. You'll use assault rifles, submachine guns, light machine guns, shotguns, and sniper rifles. Some missions have you use the same weapons multiple times, but with different attachments. For instance, in one mission you'll be using the M4A1 with a suppressor, red dot sight, and a grenade launcher. Then in the next mission you'll be using the same weapon, but with a scope this time and no suppressor or grenade launcher. No matter what the loadout is, the weapons are very fun to use. My favorite weapon is the M4A1, especially with the grenade launcher. If I had to choose my second favorite weapon, it would be the MP5. The missions in this game are outstanding. I love the intro to the cargo ship operation, where you're flying in from a chopper on a stormy night. Then once you reach the ship, you start blasting fools through a window. Eventually you find the package, but you don't have time to secure it because the enemy bogies are heading to your position. Instead, you grab the manifest and start heading out of the ship. Then the enemies start blowing up the ship and you have to get out of there fast before it sinks. I couldn't believe how awesome this mission was, and it was such a great introduction to the game. I also like the mission called Charlie Don't Surf, where you search for Al-Assad in the Middle East. When it turns out he's not in the target building, you get word from HQ that he might be in the TV station and you have to fight your way there. This mission is really cool because there's multiple pathways you can take to flank the hostile forces, plus there's a little bit of exploration. This level also encourages you to experiment with multiple weapons. When you enter the target building, you'll see a bunch of weapons laying on a table for you to try out. I love it when Call of Duty does this, though I do wish this game could let you choose your loadout and customize your weapons before starting a mission. That would have been sick. The Bog is another mission I like, where you have to break through the enemy lines to find a stranded tank before the enemies overwhelm your troops. Then there's part 2 of that mission called War Pig, where you have to escort the Abrams back to the highway. I like that there's a little bit of exploration in this level as well. You can even find some extra weapons lying around if you look hard enough. There's the mission Shock and Awe, where you surround the last of Al-Assad's forces in the capital before the nuclear explosion goes off and kills everybody, including you. Again. Damn! And finally there's the infamous All Ghillied Up mission, where you have to sneak around Chernobyl in a ghillie suit, picking off enemies with your sniper rifle, and making your way to an abandoned hotel to assassinate Imran Zakhaev. Those are my favorite missions. Of course, there are some missions that I don't like as well. There's a mission called Death from Above, where you're in control of an AC-130, and you have to shoot the hostiles below so that the ground team can reach the extraction point. Honestly, I've always found this mission pretty boring. Don't get me wrong, it's a pretty neat idea, and it definitely stands out from the other vehicle missions from other Call of Duty games. I just typically don't like vehicle sections. And then there's 5 more missions: Safe House, One Shot, One Kill, Heat, No Fighting in the War Room, and Mile High Club. Now when you're playing these missions on the easiest difficulty, they're not all that bad, but if you're playing them on the hardest difficulty, holy shit. These are some of the most infuriating missions I've ever played in a Call of Duty game. Let's start with Safe House. In this mission, you have to clear the buildings and capture Al-Assad. Sounds fairly simple, right? Well, unfortunately it's not. First of all, the level is way too open, so you'll be running to every single house just to clear them out. Then there's the endlessly spawning enemies. When I first played this, I was trying to pick them off in one spot until it was safe to move up, but it turns out that the enemies just keep respawning, so I had no choice but to try and move up the hills and pray that they don't kill me. You're provided with helicopter support, but it seems useless for the most part. You mark the targets for the chopper, then you have to wait 20 seconds for the chopper to show up. Then when it does show up, the chopper does no damage to the buildings whatsoever. It only helps you out for about 30 seconds until it has to buzz off and rearm, which takes them 40 seconds. So basically you're waiting a whole minute for them to refuel and then fly all the way back just so they can help you out for only a brief moment. Please tell me choppers aren't this useless in real life. You can't get a shot on the enemies sometimes, and when you do, some of them will either fumble over or fall to the ground and start shooting you with their pistol. When you take cover in the houses, the enemy's bullets can still go through walls and hit you. Hell, Gaz even mentions this in the tutorial level.
Bullets will penetrate thin, weak materials like wood, plaster, and sheet metal.
Sometimes the enemies will just spawn behind you and beat you to death with their rifles, which can be very annoying. The worst has to be the grenade spamming. The enemies seem to love throwing 2 or 3 grenades at you while you're hiding behind cover. I panic every time I see these grenade icons, and I start sprinting to the next piece of cover I can find. But of course the enemies shoot me down before I can even get to it. Overall, this mission just sucks. Then there's one shot, one kill, where you attempt to assassinate Zakhaev, but unfortunately you only shoot his arm off, and because you're compromised, you have to escape Chernobyl without getting hunted down. I should probably mention that All Gillied Up and One Shot, One Kill are both flashback missions where you play as Captain Price when he was a lieutenant, and you fight alongside Captain Macmillan. Now the first 3/4 of this mission are okay. You just gotta shoot a bunch of bad guys while making your way to the extraction point. But when you reach the extraction point, you have to fight off the hostile forces until the chopper comes and picks you up. Here's the problem with this part. Captain Macmillan suffers a severe leg injury after an enemy chopper crashes down and crushes his leg, so he can't really do much other than snipe the enemies behind the Ferris wheel. Meanwhile, you're heavily outnumbered by Zakhaev's men, and there's no real good camping spots. And because you're playing this on veteran difficulty, the enemies love throwing multiple grenades at you like I mentioned before. And just to make things harder than it already is, the pilot lands the chopper and tells you that you have 30 seconds to get on board or else they'll take off and leave you. So now you're having to scramble just to grab Captain Macmillan and carry him all the way to the chopper. You can't just whip out your pistol while you're carrying the guy either, so you're just running to the chopper praying that you don't get shot. The Marines step out of the chopper to give you covering fire, but they're pretty much useless because they can't seem to hit the enemies most of the time. It's like they're pretending to shoot the enemies instead of actually doing it. So yeah, this level starts out good, but then ends horribly. Then we got a similar mission called Heat, which is basically part 2 of Safe House. You and your squad ambush the enemy troops near a gas station, and you try to hold them off, but then you slowly get outnumbered and you have to fall back. Eventually you end up falling all the way back to the barn, and just to make things worse, the chopper can't land near the barn because they're picking up too many enemy radar signatures in the area. So what do you have to do? Run all the way back to the gas station. And if that's not bad enough, you have to do this under a 4-minute time limit because the chopper is low on fuel. Good God, dude, have you noticed the choppers are always low on fuel?
Bravo 6, Hammer's at bingo fuel. We're bugging out.
Hello, this is Deadly. Returning to base to refit and refuel. You're on your own for now, 2-5.
This is 2-5. We have to refuel and rearm. We will not be available for some time. Alpha 6, Big Bird is en route. ETA 20 minutes. Don't be late. We're stretching out fuel as it is. Bravo 6, be advised. We are almost there, but we're low on fuel. You guys have 3 minutes before we have to leave without you. Over.
I mean, seriously, are choppers this bad when it comes to fuel? No, seriously, I want an answer to this. Do helicopters burn through fuel that fast? Well, according to Google, yes. Helicopters consume fuel quickly, typically burning between 5 and 1100 plus gallons per hour depending on size. Huh. Touche, Infinity Ward. Touche. This next mission is a doozy. It's called No Fighting in the War Room. This is yet another mission where you're under a time limit and you have to get from point A to point B as fast as you can. Basically what happened is, Zakhaev launched 2 missiles in the air and you have 9 minutes to reach the control room before the missiles reach the United States. You're pretty much under a strict time limit, so you can't just take your time to clear the room full of enemies, and the enemies can insta-kill you in just 2 hits if you try to move up. For a while, I was having a problem with this room here because the enemies were peeking around corners and throwing an endless amount of grenades. However, I eventually came up with a strategy to get through it fast, and it's actually pretty effective. But then we get to this horrible part. There's a pathway that's blocked off, and the only way to get to the other side is if you go through one of these long hallways. Here's the major problem. There's enemies at the end of both of these hallways, and you can't hit them unless you completely move out of cover. But if you do that, you'll get shot by the enemies in the hallway behind you. I found that the only way to get past this part is if you quickly shoot a grenade down the hall and get back to cover before you're shot in the back. Sometimes it works, most of the time it doesn't. If you don't have a grenade launcher, you're gonna have to actually throw a grenade and pray that you throw it far enough to even hit the enemy, and also pray that you don't get shot while you do it. Then when you actually clear both hallways, which takes multiple tries to do, you have to watch out for the enemies that are peeking around corners, running to cover while their buddies provide covering fire, and throwing multiple grenades at once. This mission made me so mad that I almost considered this the worst mission in the game. But that wasn't until I played the hellish abomination that is simply called Mile High Club. Where do I even begin with this mission? Well, first of all, the biggest problem with this mission is that it's under a 60-second time limit, meaning you have to absolutely haul ass in order to complete this mission. Meanwhile, you have enemies from multiple angles that can insta-kill you if you're not careful. The problem is you can't be careful because you don't have the time to be careful. You have AI teammates that are absolutely useless because they're either slow as hell or they don't move up when you absolutely need them to. You're given an MP5 and a pistol, but I often try to ditch the pistol and replace it with something more useful. However, it's frustrating when you pick up a used weapon because the magazine is often low and you have to reload it before the enemy shoots you down. Probably the worst thing about this mission besides the time limit is the fact that it takes place on an airplane, which means you're having to navigate through a small and tight space just to get to the end. Then when you do reach the end, you'll see a bad guy holding somebody hostage. You cannot shoot him in the legs. You have to shoot him in the head. If you shoot him in the legs, the kill won't count, you'll fail the mission, and you have to restart the whole thing over again. Not only is the Mile High Club the worst mission in the game, but it's also the worst mission in the Call of Duty franchise. Well, at least to me it is. I haven't tried beating the hardest mission in World at War, and I really don't want to. I don't rage out when playing video games for the most part, but this mission pissed me off so bad that it actually caused me to have multiple mental breakdowns. But after the hundreds of deaths, I was finally able to beat this mission. Twice. I beat the original and remastered version of this game on veteran difficulty. I even got all the trophies for the remastered version about a month after it came out, which I'm very proud of. I did technically beat the PC version on veteran difficulty as well, but not in a very honorable way. I cheated, and I'd do it again. There is a small addition to the game that I didn't quite cover. In some of the missions, you get to use night vision goggles. You're first introduced to it when you have to rescue Nikolai, who is a Russian informant who supplied you intel on the cargo ship operation. You rescue him in this big house while the power's cut off, and that's when you put on your night vision goggles. It's a really cool feature that you probably won't use all that much. It's only required when you have to rescue Nikolai, but you don't really need it after that because the rest of the game is decently lit, even during missions that take place at night. Of course, you could turn the brightness down and play a mission with night vision goggles, but I doubt anyone's going to want to do that. Actually, I just realized that you don't have to use the night vision goggles at all. You could just turn the brightness all the way up before rescuing Nikolai if you wanted to, but again, no one's going to want to do that. There's also enemy intel that you can find in each of the levels, which can unlock cheats depending on how many you find. Some of the cheats are just visual changes like COD Nor, which makes everything black and white, Photo Negative, which inverts the color palette, Super Contrast, which drastically increases the color contrast, and Ragtime Warfare, which makes the gameplay at 2x speed with a sepia filter and silent film style piano music. Then there's the cheats that change up the gameplay, like Clutter Bombs, which make frag grenades release 5 additional mini explosions upon detonating, A Bad Year, which makes killed enemies explode into a pile of tires, Slow-Mo ability, where tapping the melee button toggles bullet time, and finally there's Infinite Ammo, which gives you, well, infinite ammo. There's also Arcade Mode, which is an unlockable high score driven campaign variant unlocked by completing the main game. It features a scoring system, limited lives, and faster gameplay, allowing you to play missions for a leaderboard placement. I've had this game for years and I honestly never cared for this mode. I suppose I could play through it just to say that I did it, but if you think I'm gonna play this on veteran difficulty, hell no. Playing Arcade Mode on veteran difficulty would be the reason why controllers get broken. And finally, let's talk about multiplayer. Well, I wish I I could, but the problem is I had a hard time finding a match. I went to join game and clicked on the very first server, but it didn't work. It gave me an error message saying invalid password. So then I went back and clicked on the second server and I finally loaded into a deathmatch, but the problem was there were no players. I ran around the whole map trying to find somebody to shoot, but there was just no players to be found. What made it even worse was the fact that this empty match was lagging. How? There's nobody here but me and my internet connection works just fine. So then I went back and clicked on the third server and I finally found a match, but the problem is it was a pretty big map and it was a hardcore 1v1. Also the connection sucked here too, which didn't surprise me at that point. However, despite all that, I decided to stay in this match for a bit just to see if I can get some kills, and surprisingly I did. Maybe I'm not so bad at Call of Duty multiplayer after all. After that, I went back to click on the fourth server and it loaded me into another team deathmatch, but once again I was the only one on the server. Then I went back to click on the fifth one and it put me in this endless loading screen saying awaiting challenge. I couldn't take it anymore at this point and I just decided to give up. I never really played much Call of Duty 4 multiplayer in the past because, like I said in my Advanced Warfare review, I'm not really a Call of Duty multiplayer person. Hell, I'm not much of an online multiplayer person in general. I don't hate multiplayer, it's just really not my cup of tea. I only enjoy multiplayer on occasion and it depends on what game I'm playing. Anyway, that's all I have to say about Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. The campaign is amazing, the arcade mode is just there, and the multiplayer doesn't work that well anymore. Overall, do I think Call of Duty 4 is a good game? No. It's a fantastic one. The campaign holds up extraordinarily well, and it might just be my favorite Call of Duty campaign of all time. Like I said, I don't know which one I love more, this one or Modern Warfare 2. I guess if I really had to choose, it would be the first game for sure, because this was the game that made me fall in love with the franchise to begin with. I went on Steam to see how much the game was selling for, and I'm happy to report that Activision is not charging $60 for an 18-year-old game. Instead, the game is reasonably priced at $20. I recommend this game to anyone who loves first-person shooters and military games in general. It is a great game from start to finish and holds a special place in my heart. Call of Duty 4 is an awesome game. Definitely check it out. But wait, there's more! In 2016, they released Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered for PS4, Xbox One, and PC. It's basically Call of Duty 4 again, but with updated graphics, additional animations, and different sound effects. Let's do some comparisons between the Wii, PS3, and PS4 versions, shall we? Man, the Wii version looks rough. That looks pretty good. Oh, that's just... oh, damn. This game looks really good, and it blew my mind when I first saw gameplay footage of it back in 2016. The character models, the guns, the explosions, and the environments look sick. It is truly impressive, no doubt, but honestly, I prefer the look of the original. I don't know what it is, but there's just something about the visuals in the original version that I like more than the remastered version. I think it's the lighting effects, because I always loved how your weapon would turn white when you're facing a light bulb or even the sun. I can't be the only one who's done this the first time playing this game. It's just really satisfying to me. Okay, so the remastered version has improved visuals, but if there's one thing I don't like about the remastered version, it's the gun sounds. A lot of them just sound weaker in this version. And while we're on the subject of sound, I don't like how your fellow soldiers sound when they're talking to each other via walkie-talkie.
No time, Bravo 6. 2 bogeys headed your way fast. Grab what you can and get the hell out of there. No time, Bravo 6. 2 bogeys headed your way fast. Grab what you can and get the hell out of there.
Yeah, when it comes to the audio department, the original version wins hands down. I think the remaster should have had the option to let you toggle between the old sound effects and new sound effects. That would have been cool. However, there is one thing I think the remastered version does better than the original. Multiplayer. First and foremost, it actually works. There's no lag and there's no on-screen message saying connection interrupted. Of course, I'm talking about the PS4 version of this game. Strangely enough, I couldn't find a public lobby on the PC version. I went to find a team deathmatch, but there were only 5 people in the lobby and the game requires you to have 6. I spent about 15 minutes waiting for one more person to join, but I eventually just said screw it and gave up. Sure, the multiplayer in the original game was kinda jank, but at least I was able to join a lobby. I don't know, maybe it just depends on the time of day GTA, you play the multiplayer. Or maybe the PC version just sucks and you should stick with the PS4 version. But hey, if you do have the PC version and you really want to play multiplayer, bots. Yes, if there's one thing that the remastered does better than the original, it's the fact that you can play with bots. This is a more than welcome change, especially if you're like me who doesn't like playing with campers and cheaters. However, there's one problem I have with playing with bots, and that is there's no progression system once again. Why is it that Black Ops 1 is the only game that has a progression system with bots? I will never understand this in a million years. I don't like to have things just handed to me. I want to actually work towards unlocking things. Otherwise, I'm just fighting bots for the sake of fighting bots. And while I'm being critical here, this game should have added zombies, spec ops, survival, and war mode. All of this added content would have made the game worth paying $40. As it is, it's just not worth the price. You're just paying for a graphical upgrade. Oh wait, I somewhat take that back. There actually is a little bit of added content, and what is that, you might ask? Extra tutorial sections in the mission FNG. After you shoot the targets, switch to your sidearm, and knife the watermelon, you head outside the building and you'll see an added grenade tutorial and an added crouching and crawling tutorial. That's it. To be fair, they are neat little additions to the campaign, but seriously, that's all we got? Is this supposed to be worth the extra money? Get bent. The game is only $20 if you buy the Call of Duty Infinite Warfare Digital Legacy Edition. Oh yeah, that's another thing I want to touch upon. This game was released alongside of the brand new Call of Duty Infinite Warfare at the time. The problem is you couldn't buy the game separately. You had to buy Infinite Warfare if you wanted to play Modern Warfare Remastered. In other words, the game was locked behind an $80 paywall. That is stupendously scummy. That would be like if Disney told you that the first 3 Toy Story films couldn't be sold to you unless you buy the Toy Story 4 bundle. I don't want to buy Toy Story 4, that movie sucks. And so does Activision with their corporate greed and awful business practices. They might just be the absolute worst gaming publisher in history. Obviously you can buy the game separately now, but you should have been able to do that in the first place. Fail, Activision, fail. So yeah, the remaster is good, but I wouldn't recommend paying $40 for it. But hey, the original game will always be a masterpiece in my eyes, and no remaster or remake could change that. This is without a doubt one of my top 10 favorite games of all time, and I cherish all the good memories I've had with this game. I'm telling you right now, if you have not played this game before, definitely play it now. You will not be disappointed. Hello YouTube, this game sucks because no co-op. What are you talking about, bro? So what, Mario 64 sucks because it has no co-op? Hey bro, you remember that badass game called GTA Vice City? Yeah, that game was pretty good and all, but you know, it's just not good anymore. Actually, it kind of sucks now because no co-op. Hey, you remember that Resident Evil 6 game that nobody liked? Well, I guess that game is good all of a sudden because it has co-op, so, you know, I guess that fixes everything now. Yeah, it's official. Resident Evil 6 is a good game. You're a moron, bro. Shout out to my brother from another mother, Lord Neptune. Love you, brother.